Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 2, where we are exploring our galactic origins and becoming multidimensional. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our special guest, Celia Fenn. Welcome, Celia.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me. It's wonderful to be with you.
I'm so happy to have you. And I didn't say my own name, Washela Sananda. Usually I introduce myself, even though most people already know who I am if they're watching.
Well, that's who we are.
Now we know who we're talking to. Okay, well, Celia, I'm just so delighted to have you on because you are a wealth of information on every topic that this summit is about. And so just to share with the audience, Celia Fenn is a writer, a channel, an artist, a spiritual creative, galactic shaman, and quantum time traveler. And she's been working over 20 years to assist people on their spiritual journey. And Celia, I've known about your work for a while. I know you've been writing books with a lot of information about ascension, about what's happening on our planet, and about how we can really get in touch with our galactic origins and become more multidimensional ourselves. So it's wide open where we could begin, but for those, if there are, I'm sure many of our viewers are already aware with your work, but for those that are not, can we have just a little bit of your origin story about how you tapped in and began to share this body of work?
Oh, okay. That's always quite a long story, so to make it short.
The,
My
the
first
condensed version.
condensed version, well, it starts when I was 5, so it could be very long, but I'll make it short. When I was 5, I first connected with Archangel Michael, and I had this sort of angel episode. I opened the door, and there was this beautiful angel, and of course, I was the only one who saw it. But I knew that there was something. And of course, then I went on with life, and nothing particular happened. I went to university, studied, became a university professor. Life went on, and then at one stage, all this connection with Archangel Michael came back, and that was about 25 years ago. And that was when I went into Ascension. I began my own Ascension process in August of 2001, which of course Lionsgate, full moon, and then followed by 9/11. So it was like wham, the whole world was upside down because not only did 9/11 happen and really change the way the world was, my own life kind of went upside down because my husband left, I got divorced. It was just crazy. Everything that I had understood to be the foundation of my life was overturned, and I had to start rebuilding my life. And of course, part of this was Archangel Michael coming in and beginning to work with me. In order to be a channel, I was trained by Spirit for a year. And then they said to me, okay, now that you can do this, because it took me a year to do my first channel, really, you've no idea how difficult it can be to bring through information from the right brain to the left brain and to do it, make it available to people. But I did that, and then they said to me, okay, now you're going to work with Archangel Michael, and the rest is history. And that was 20 years ago. So for 20 odd years, I have been channeling in different ways, in different levels, information about Ascension, and especially what I'm working with at the moment, which is time, and the Lion's Gates, the 4 gates, the time gates, and how that contributes to our process of becoming multidimensional. So that was the shortest version I could think of. Okay, hope that explains it to you.
That was beautiful. Thank you. And so I want to dive into that about the Lion's Gate. I know as we're filming this, we've just come out of that period of time, and I had so many people during that time, myself included, say, wow, something really powerful is going on. I can feel it, or we're completely wiped out by the energy of it. In fact, I had several speakers, experts for the summit, postpone, yourself included, during the Lionsgate where we were going to be filming. And then we decided to postpone because of, there was almost like this recovery period, or integration period, maybe would be a better way to say it. Could you explain more about what's happening?
Okay, I first encountered the Lion's Gate around about 2004. So I was one of the early pioneers of what is the Lion's Gate. I still say, I have people coming to me saying, what is the Lion's Gate? And I'm writing about it now. But to me, as I have discovered by working with Archangel Michael, it's a solar time portal. And there are 4 of them in the year. There's the Lion's Gate, there's the Scorpio Gate in November, there's Aquarius Gate in February, and the Taurus Gate in May. And time is a spiral. So every annual spiral goes around through these 4 points. And because we're spiraling up, we begin a new spiral in August. So consciousness lifts. It's about evolution, ascension and evolution. So at the Lion's Gate at this point, consciousness takes a real whoopee, you know, goes up. And I really feel that this year, it's been massive. It's been huge. And the exhaustion so many people are feeling is what's happening when the right brain and the left brain are trying to work together, because the right brain just loves this, going off into cosmic space. It's made for it. Left brain's not so sure, you know, doesn't quite know how to vibrate with it, because, you know, this one's spinning and this one's trying to, you know, do I spin faster? So it begins to spin faster for some people, and they just flip out because they can't keep up with the pace of, and you become exhausted and you don't know what to do with yourself. But actually what should happen is the left brain should slow down, because as things go higher in consciousness, they become slower. So I've just been saying to people, you know, with this intense energy we're working with at the moment, you need to slow down. You need to really be in your heart space. You need to just rest, take care of yourself, and trust that the magical higher part of yourself, let's call it Sophia, the divine feminine wisdom, that is all there to guide you and take care of you and make your life work. You just have to move into that flow and use your left brain for what it's meant to be used for, which is to observe your life and make choices. Basically, that's it. You're not meant to run your life with your left brain. That's what the right brain is for. That's what the higher facilities are for. Spirit, soul, higher self. And the left brain is like the junior partner who is here on the earth, just observing and deciding, no, I like that. Yes, I like that. I want this, I want that, I want to experience, and then handing it over to the higher aspects to ensure that these manifest at the right time. So as we begin now with the Lion's Gate, we're starting a new time spiral. It's a really good time to start thinking about, what do you want to manifest? What do you want to experience at this higher level? Because it's not the same level as it was last year. We've moved up the spiral, so we're at a higher level, which enables you to be more powerful, to create a more powerful manifestation, and to manifest your soul's purpose, which of course is the most important thing for us on the earth.
Ah, beautiful description of that. And I love the idea of the spiral and the left brain as sort of subservient to the right brain, which I've always felt, you know, I felt that. I've never heard it described that way, but I loved your description as a junior partner.
That's the way to describe it.
Yeah, I love that. So something I've noticed, it actually happened to me this morning. So I feel like it's relevant to this conversation right now. I do a morning meditation before I get up, and I do an evening before I go to sleep at night. And as I was awakening this morning, doing my morning meditation, I do a visual, part of that is a conscious life creation visualization. And I input something into my, and something new today, something big into my, something I'd like to manifest in my life. And it was immediately followed by a negative, like some negative imagery, a negative scenario playing out in my mind. And I became conscious of it. And I'm like, whoa, what's happening there? It feels like, you know, it showed me this is what's in the way of you having that.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, how powerful that we can get it that quickly. Do you find that the ability to, things like that are accentuated in this energy?
Yeah, that's part of the clearing process. When we create with the right brain on the higher self, we imprint our desire onto what I call the time crystals, which is a subatomic quantum minute little atom that functions in manifestation process. So we imprint our command, as it were, or our desire onto the time crystals, and they begin to vibrate it into manifestation. Now, if there's something which has a contrary vibration or is vibrating against it, then of course you're going to nullify that, because it's a very sensitive process. So everything you wish for, you will manifest, but you might manifest something like you did, which will block it and not allow it to be experienced by you, because the fear that you were putting up has created something else. So yes, we're going through a very intense clearing, cleansing, becoming aware of how we're working against ourselves when we do manifest. And that when we manifest, we do it purely from love, or purely from the desire to create, and not from fear. Because much of what we see going on around us right now, all these pandemics and wars and things, you think about our movie industry, what the movie industry is imprinting on the collective. And we're basically just living in one of these, or several of these movies all at once, because we're putting that out. So if we can stop putting that out and start putting out what we really want, and not just consuming other people's nightmares, basically, then we'll have a very different experience of what our life can be. I think this is something we're also learning in 2020, the power of putting out images, holographic images, and that they do manifest in our reality.
Yes, they sure do. And I think it's really important to take note of what we're inputting in 2020 as well, because certainly there is an abundance of fear and chaos available to input.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
need to buffer ourselves from that.
Well, the movie industry does make it available as thrilling. It's the adventure, you get killed, get murdered, have a horror movie, whatever, and we sit and watch this. So, of course, this quantum process of manifestation thinks that's what we want. We spend a lot of time watching it. So obviously we want to experience it. So as you say, if our input is different, if we say to the creative field, hey, we want to experience the new earth, we want beauty, and it does work, because I live in a very beautiful house, and I'm very happy with my beautiful house. But I used to spend a lot of time reading home decor magazines, because they were my favorite kind of magazines. And I couldn't work out for a while why every house I moved into got better and better. And my guidance said, you haven't seen anything yet, wait till you see the next one. And I'm going like, well, why do I need a next one? Because I was very happy with what I had. But I realized that we can never stay in the same place. We're constantly evolving. And that the evolving and the natural spiral of evolution is upward to better things. So if we keep, like me, I was reading these magazines all the time. The input is, okay, look at all these beautiful houses. So I manifest one. So the same principle works with anything you're looking at that's beautiful, that's giving you comfort, that's helping you to evolve into a higher space of harmony and peace. But you have to feed it in order to manifest it. And you have to stop feeding in the garbage that is helping us collectively to create so much chaos and anger and frustration.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, with news, I know a lot of people feel they must watch the news to be properly informed citizens. And I don't watch the news at all. I just find it disturbing most of the time. I don't watch politics. We're in a year of lots of politics being discussed here in the US in particular. And I don't watch any of that. And I find that when I do, however, I feel disrupted energetically. So,
well, it's specifically designed to hook you in, because the more you can have people hooked in and giving their energy to duality, because that's what politics is. It's one side against the other. And until that changes, we're going to keep manifesting aggression and duality. And if you think of American politics right now, it's all about the election, and it's being framed as a conflict. And people are nasty to each other and whatever. So Why do we have to manifest that kind of reality in order to have an election? Why can't people do an election on positive platforms? Why does it have to be about how old you are, how stupid you are, or what the mistakes you make, and all that kind of thing? So again, it's the same principle. We're feeding in all this negative stuff, and what we're getting is a chaotic mess.
Yeah.
And but the sad thing is that in the spiritual community, there are so many people who are being pulled into this. I know because of my work, I tend to look at other people, what they're doing. And I've noticed several people who last year were doing amazing spiritual work and now doing politics.
Mm.
Spirituality is gone. It's all about politics, and it's aggressive and it's confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for what I say to my people who I work with is you really have to feel into your body and into your heart, because when something is truthful and is a real truth for you, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel peaceful. It makes you feel in truth. Whereas if something makes you feel irritable and angry and you've got to fight all the time, that's an illusion. It's not truth. And we really have to look at the difference between truth and illusion. Because I find many of the people who are going on about this is the truth and everything else is a lie are actually in that illusion field. Because the moment you're in duality and you're saying this is truth and this is not, you're creating a duality. You're not in higher consciousness. You're right at the bottom, the third dimension. And that's not where we need to be anymore. We want to be up in the fifth dimension, where we're working with the law of one, and higher, where we're manifesting through a unity field. So it's very important that in your spiritual practice and your spiritual work, you don't get hooked into this kind of anxiety and anger and whatever else is going on at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. And I feel like that's a great entry point into what an opportunity we have right now to enter into this space of the heart and creating through love. And I know that's a huge part of your work, as it is mine, and that we are conscious creators of our reality in every moment. And so, we can't say that anybody that's creating from fear and lack and whatever anger and chaos, that's true for them. But they can extract themselves and get into the heart and stand in a new space. So let's talk about that, the new earth and the emotional architecture of the new earth and how we build that through our heart center.
Well, the heart is the center. It's the center of the new earth multidimensional body. So everything is held at the heart. And it's the place where balance is held. So heaven and earth, masculine and feminine, whatever there is that needs to be held in balance is held in the heart. And then you can work from that. If you're not in your heart and if you're not in balance, you're going to be stuck in these lower levels, which is your lower three chakras, base chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus, basically money, sex, and power. That's where you're locked in. And the heart is where this opens out into the higher levels. So until you can rest in your heart and come from love, not from money, sex, and power, but from love, you won't be able to rise up into the higher dimensions. And I think this is what holds many people back, is their fears around money. Will I have enough? Big lack consciousness, a lot of fear around finances. Sexual energies, relationship energies, a lot of fear and anxiety around that. And also social energies around power. Am I good enough? Can I do this? Will I be able to make my job work? So there's so much fear and anxiety that getting into the heart center where you say, I'm good enough just because I am who I am. It's rising up to that point and understanding, yes, you are. And that you can do the money, sex, and power thing because you are a divine being who has all this creative power. So you move into the heart and move up. You can express with your throat. You can balance the left brain, right brain. You can move into your spiritual self and then up into the soul. And as I said at the beginning, you have all this tremendous power available to you. You're not just coming from your solar plexus or your sacral. You're coming from soul and spirit into the heart and then out into manifestation. So you don't need to be fearful because you're not drawing on 3 chakras. You're on 12 and more. and you have all this power coming through. But it does require of each one of us to take that step into the heart and say, I am what I am, and I love myself for what I am. And to release anything, any program, any belief that says, no, you're not. You're damaged. You're not good enough. You're too weak. Whatever the messages that you're getting, or if whatever you want is not going to work for you, it's not going to be good enough for you, you know, etc., etc. We're not trusting that process of manifestation. And really, we were designed to walk our path and manifest without even thinking about it. We all know about intention and visualization. We all do it, but we shouldn't have to. We should be able to manifest exactly what we need, because the flow of energy is so pure and clear. At the moment the desire arrives, the manifestation is there. And it's an ongoing process of desire, manifestation, always moving at higher levels. And as we become more comfortable with Ascension, we will go back to that way of living and manifesting. It's only in this transitional period where we're still trying to drop the old way and step into the new way that we have to really think about, what is my intention? What am I wanting to manifest, you know, and what do I have to think about? But eventually, when we're in New Earth frequency, as I said, this will become normal process for us. We won't even have to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were speaking, you know, I was seeing how once we open the heart center, once we get into the heart, which can be scary because this is where vulnerability exists, and you know, as human beings, we've all had trauma and built up walls. It's just a natural thing that happens throughout our lives. And then we have this example of, like you said, money, power, and sexuality that makes people feel as if they're not vulnerable. But we actually have to kind of reverse all of that and get the heart open, become vulnerable. And then I find that's when we're able to create generosity, you know, abundance, and then be generous with it and have sacred sexuality and have authentic power. So it's not power over, but it's power generated from the heart, from within. And that's sort of the big shift that society needs to get to enter into the new earth or ascended consciousness.
Absolutely. And you know, also when you go through that shift and you finally are in the heart space, it also becomes easy. You don't even have to think about I'm vulnerable, because you're actually not, because you feel immediately, this is not going to be good for me, or I shouldn't be in this, or I should. You know, you don't have, if a relationship comes in and you think to yourself, okay, I'm vulnerable, I'm open, do I take on this relationship? And something in you says, no, it's not going to work for you. Would you honor that and say, okay, no, this is not for me, and move on until something came to you that was for you? Because at that point, you are so tuned to your emotions and to your body and to your feelings that you can feel immediately when something is not for you. And I had that experience quite recently with someone, a relationship. I could just feel the energy wasn't in alignment with mine, no matter how attractive it might seem. And I was right. But, you know, for me, it was trusting the flow of feeling and not using the left brain. The left brain would make a list, you know, this is right, this is wrong, you know, can I take it this way or that way? But it's when the heart and the instinctual, intuitive, it's called the intuitive rather, and the instinctual, they're all aligned. And you can feel immediately what's going to work for you or what isn't. And if you have to let go of something, there's no trauma, there's no huge wounding. It simply is knowing that this was not for you, and let it go, let it flow away. And what I use now is this metaphor of flowing. It flows to you and it flows away. And we're not meant to be traumatized by that process at all. It simply is a divine flow that allows us to experience what we want to and what we need to.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes those relationships just come for a period of time to teach us something or to help us recognize something we need to transform within ourselves sometimes.
In the transition space, but I say once you move through the transition space, you recognize immediately, I don't need to learn this again.
Yeah.
Because that was what I felt. I felt I've done this before. I don't need to do it again.
Yeah.
I've learned it. Thank you, universe.
Yeah.
Multiverse, whatever. I've learned this lesson. Next, you know, it simply is recognizing patterns you've been working with, and patterns that you're ready to graduate from. And I really do feel that there are many of us, which I call the first wave awakeners, maybe second wavers too, who are ready for the new earth.
Mm-hmm.
We're not needing to go through the same old patterns again and again and again. We're ready to step into the new earth and to start manifesting and creating on that level of divine flow, where we can simply feel what we want, feel it in our hearts, feel it in our souls, what we want to create, what we want to experience, and what we don't, we can turn away from.
Yes, absolutely. And we have to be willing to sometimes look very discriminately at, or just use discernment about what is, which relationships should stay and maybe which ones need to go, and look at those relationships across all of our life experience, not just in our primary relationships, but it could be friendships and business
Yes.
and
Whatever is in your life, whatever relationship it might be.
yeah.
Because we're in such a transitional period, and because we're living on so many different dimensions, you could be vibrating in the fifth dimension, and somebody that you're working with is vibrating in the third dimension. It's going to be very difficult. And if you move into new earth frequency and they're still in the third dimension, it's going to be something that's really going to pull at your energy. And you'd really have to look at, do I really want to be in this space? Can I cope with it? If you're a master of energy, yes, of course you can, But if you're still in the intermediate, I'm learning stages where most of us are, let's face it, it's going to be quite difficult to keep your energy balanced. But this is what we're here for, to understand what these different dimensions feel like. And one of the things I work with my group is to say to them, look at what your body's feeling. The moment your body feels uneasy and painful and you're tired, there's something wrong with that energy vibration, because it's not where you want to be. And you need to look at taking yourself back to where you want to be, which is a choice. And of course, not easy, but it will become easier as you make that choice and say, no, I don't want to vibrate this low frequency. I want to be at a higher frequency, and to take yourself there and say, okay, I'm going to be in the new earth frequency from now on. But of course, it's like this, because we have to go out and do the shopping and be with the family and, sit up and down and up and down. No wonder we're exhausted. But more and more, we're learning to master those different energy flows and to feel where we are and where we need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just made a really important point for people to realize in this ascension process, where we are raising our frequency to be compatible with the new earth, 5D and higher, that we don't always stay. It's not like we reach a certain level and then stay there forever. It's not a one-time thing. Like I've ascended, now I'm done. It's a, we have life, we go back and forth and we get pulled, and that's okay. That's part of the process. And to have
That's
those
what I was
tools.
saying, about the Lion's Gate, is that it's an annual progression. It's an evolution. We don't just go around in circles, we go in spirals. So every time we come round, we lift. And life is like that too. Once we achieve something, we don't just sit there forevermore and say, okay, we've achieved it. Mm-hmm. We go on to achieve something else, which was the story with the house. Why do I need a better house every year or every second or third year? Because I'm evolving, and what was suitable for me 3 years ago might not be today. And that because I like to be cozy and comfortable, and I don't like upping and moving all the time. So I had to understand that life itself is a trajectory of evolution. Yeah. And that's what we were designed to do. We weren't designed to stay in the same place and get comfortable. We were designed to keep evolving and keep becoming. The Egyptians called it the art of becoming. You're always becoming. You never arrive. You never are totally. You're becoming the whole time. Of course, you have your inner I am presence, which is your infinite self. But on the journey of life, you're always becoming as you move through the different spirals of time and space and creativity, which is an exciting adventure. We're here to adventure, and experience, not to sit in the same place.
I agree. Yes. And I love the art of becoming and how it's infinite, and that's something I teach about in my ascension training, is the you know, you're never done. There's always another layer. There's always another layer. There's always another layer, and it's infinite. We can always continue. As long as we're here anyway, we can continue that process.
What has happened, of course, with our Earth is that, let's just say some of us have worked out how to hold the others back, how to keep people at a certain level to control them. So not everybody goes through at Lionsgate, because one of the things that happens is a lot of chaos and negativity is generated around about the time of the gates. And then people don't pass through, they stay down. And instead of spiraling their lives beautifully, they're just going round and round in circles. And some people's lives do feel like that. They're just going around in circles. They never get anywhere. For 40, 50 years, they just go around in a circle because they're not following the natural spiral evolution. So that's where the heart comes in. When you open the heart and free yourself, then you can bypass all this desire to hold you in fear and move through the heart into the higher dimensions of becoming and evolution.
Yeah, I will say for myself, I had done so much spiritual work for so many years. I've been on this path for 30 years myself, but it wasn't until I had this massive heart awakening, which I had no idea that was going to happen. It's one of those things that you think your heart is open, you think you're, coming from love, and then you have an experience where like, oh, and it wasn't until that time that I felt like now I really want to be in this body. Now I really love and appreciate being here and being in this body. Before that, I loved going out. I loved being galactic. I wanted to, just be out because it was more comfortable. But I found that opening the portal of the heart and embodying the self, it feels good when the heart's open. But if the heart isn't open, if you're one of those people that like just wants to be out here all the time, it's time to do the work in the heart so you can want to be in this body. It feels very different with an open heart.
The adventure of life on Earth, why do you think there are 9 billion people on Earth? Because everybody wants to be here to experience it. The adventure of physicality and physical life. It is an adventure. It's the most amazing experience. So while we are here, but it's not easy, because we are cut off from our spiritual roots, and we have to keep reminding ourselves that although we are physical, we are essentially infinite and spiritual. Once we get that balancing act right, then it becomes an easy ride almost to understand how it flows, how it works, that the heart is the center. And then it becomes, everything you experience can be seen in that way of the divine experiencing itself and looking for new experiences, and not just some timid little person trying to be safe in their job, in their house, and, whatever people feel they need for security. But actually just going out there and experiencing as much as they can of this adventure of life.
Yeah, and also, and I've heard you talk about this as well, that the heart is a portal. It's like a stargate that we can travel through. And I'd love to hear you speak about that, because I heard an interview with you talking about the flower of life and the heart as a portal. And when I heard it, I was like, oh, that's a lot like what I experienced as well. Can you share about that information?
Can't remember exactly what I was saying, but I've always understood that we are our own portal, that when you are a master and you're fully able to engage your energy, then you don't have to look for a portal outside of you, because your heart is the portal. And that once you go through your heart center, you can then go up into the soul star and into the cosmic heart, and you can voyage wherever you need to go. And that is the way we bring wisdom back in. If we go out into the Akashic records or the astral or wherever, bring back what we need to know. So whenever you want to voyage in the higher realms, this is shamanic wisdom. I'll call myself a galactic shaman, because that's what I feel we're doing now. We're not just exercising shamanic energy on the earth, we're now going galactic. But we use the heart gate, our own portal, to go up and out, because we are in effect, each one of us is I would say a star being with a galactic portal in our heart that we can use when we have understanding of it to connect us to the galaxy and to the cosmic heart.
Absolutely. And it's so empowering when we get connected that way. I find that even though I was connecting galactically before I had my heart awakening experience, I found it to be much more powerful when I travel in through the heart and then, and then out,
Yeah.
and all information. I would say the heart is a hologram of the whole, of the divine. So everything that we want to know, we can find through that portal of the heart. And
I do every meditation or activation that I do starts in the heart.
yeah.
And before I go into anything, I always balance heaven and earth and masculine and feminine, make sure it's all in alignment. Then you can go into your work.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just sort of start working and hope that it's all there. You make darn sure it's all lined up, the portal's ready, and then you can go into whatever work you need to do. Of course, if you're an ascended master of many years, I'm sure you can just do it naturally. But I think for us, we have to really align ourselves with that structure and with the heart portal, and then we can go into whatever work we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You had mentioned something about the reconnection to the sacred earth calendar when we spoke before. Did you want to speak about that?
Okay. It also ties in with the Lion's Gate, because one of the things that Archangel Michael said to me in one of the channel sessions I did was that humanity has lost touch with the sacred earth calendar, because the calendar we use now, I think it's called Gregorian or Julian, one of them, Gregorian, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is not really based on anything. He said somebody decided to sit down and count, and that's why we have an extra day, because the counting was a bit off. So every 4 years we have an extra day. But when you work with the sacred earth calendar, it's based on the movement of the sun, or of the earth and the sun in relation to the stars. It's kind of based on the zodiacal circle or spiral. So what we look at then is the 4 time gates I've mentioned already. We look at the solstices and the equinoxes and the 13 moons. And each of those is a sacred moment for an aware and awake person. Like today is the Leo new moon. So it's a very potent day for planting seeds, for creating new projects. So someone who's aware of the sacred earth year would be aware it's the moon cycle, it's the Leo cycle, and it's the Lion's Gate, and coming up for spring equinox, for me spring equinox, you fall equinox in September. So within that sacred earth calendar, there are things moving and shifting that affect how you feel and what you're doing. So you understand the movement. And also in the sacred earth calendar, the new year is on the 26th of July. It isn't in January, because that's when sun is in Leo, Lion's Gate opens, whatever. There's also the astrological calendar, which begins in March in Aries. That's another story. But there are different ways of keeping time. And the one that I was interested in was the Sacred Earth calendar, because it works with the flows of energy on the Earth in relation to stellar energies, solar energies, and galactic energies.
Yeah, and it makes so much more sense than leap year and adding the day and all of that funny stuff that we do to try and make it work when we have access to a calendar that actually is legitimate and it works with the astrology.
What I used to do is look at the stars and say, whoops, there's Leo, or it's Sirius or whatever, and you would see Sirius coming up and you would know this was the time of the year when certain things happened, because that was where the Earth was in relation to the sun, in relation to the galactic center.
Yeah. Is it similar to the Mayan calendar?
Well, yes and no, because Jose Argelius, who did a lot of work on time, did work with the Mayan calendar, but I'm not interested in the long counts and the short counts and all that kind of thing. That's a whole different cosmology. I respect what they do, but it's not what I'm busy doing. But it does draw on that, because I also work with the day out of time, which is what Argelius kind of initiated as the kind of magical portal between the old spiral and the new spiral. So, the 24th is the end, 25th is the day out of time, and 26th is the new year. So you begin, and of course, for those of you in the north, it's in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
Which makes it much more fun than it is here, because here it's a little winter.
Right.
But you can feel it more because you have Sirius rising with the sun. That's how one determines the Lion's Gate, when Sirius rises in the morning with the sun. It's called the period of the two suns. So it's hot. because you've got two suns sending out intense radiation. So not just spiritual radiation, which of course is intense, but also solar, stellar radiation that hits the earth at that time.
I love that.
Or is Regulus, which is the heart of the lion, which at the moment is, although it's called the heart of the lion, it's just at the beginning of Virgo. So this energy goes through into the beginning of Virgo, beginning of September, and then connects up with the equinox, which is the seasonal gate. So we're rising towards that. So you can see these flows and ebbs of energy connected to the stars and connected to the great central sun, where all these energies come from as part of our ascension and as part of the energies we work with when we are aligned with the flows of energies in the galaxy.
Wonderful. So something we spoke about before we began recording was, what a powerful time this is, and how it's important to know about the indigo and crystal children and adults now too, and the waves of ascension. And I'd love to get into that topic a little bit as well. Can we?
Well, I did mention to you that this was something I did as a first wave awakener back in 2000, and I think it was 2003-4, started working with what was called the Indigo children then, and began to realize that the whole ascension process had been initiated by children, because you had these 3 waves of advanced souls that arrived on the planet. The first wave started in the 70s, that was the Indigo children. A second wave in the 80s, that was second wave Indigos. And then in the 90s was the Crystal children. And then from 2012 was the Diamond children. And each wave of these children brought with it the tremendously powerful ascension activating energy. So they came into families and their parents just went, wow, because that energy was so powerful. It wasn't easy because if, all the old patterns came out and things had to be released and whatever. So it was not an easy time for families that incarnated indigos. I remember I was working with indigos in 2005 or 6, and so many of them were rebelling against their parents because that's what they came to do. Mm-hmm. But the parents were finding it very difficult, and they used to bring the kids to me to try and sort them out. But meanwhile, it was the parents who needed sorting out. But that was the whole point, because the first wave were systems busters. They were there to bust the systems that their parents had put in place. And the second wave were the heart warriors. Those are the ones, the first sort of generation that began to look at the heart and self-empowerment as the center of what we needed to move forward. And then, of course, the crystal children, totally heart-based, totally connected to the galaxy. They were the first wave, fully aware of their galactic origins, where the indigos had been connected to the soul and were often very psychic. It was the crystals who were galactic. And when the diamond children came along, 2012 beyond, they were totally connected to everything, totally wired into everything, so ready to go for the new earth. So when the diamond children arrived 2020, 2012, 2013 and onward, again, it pushed us into our galactic evolution, because with their frequency vibrating around us, we were almost like unable to help ourselves. We just moved up and became galactic. And that was a very difficult period for many people post 2012. I know I went into quite a difficult period. I didn't know what to do with myself. I wasn't sure post 2012, we'd reached 2012. What do we do now? And it took me quite a while to reorient myself to what Spirit wanted me to do in this next period. So I think for people who are just waking up now and they don't know anything about the indigos and the crystals, it's a good idea for them to try and find out a little bit. They might understand their own, what happened when they were growing up and their relationship with their parents. And that's why I've offered the book that I offered to you, the Indigo Crystal Adventure, as a free gift. Because although it was written in the mid, about 2005, 2006, I think I wrote it, that information is very valid for today and will help people to understand how the children are helping us and have helped us to go through this ascension process, and how they continue to help us, because they're always born at a higher frequency than their parents.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And so just so everybody understands or knows that we are Celia's giving us all the book, The Indigo Crystal Adventure, as her free gift. It's an ebook, and you'll be able to download that by sending her an email and asking, I think in the subject line, you write free gift, and I'll be sure to put that information on the speaker page so that everyone knows how to contact you and receive that book, because I think it is very important information, and also to kind of get our earth history and where we are with, and where these children, who many are becoming adults now, you know, are into their adulthood now, but who are opening sort of the doorways of ascension for everyone.
Well, I don't know about just adulthood. I was just thinking the other day, some of them who were born in the 1970s are now getting 50, you know, so they're moving, they're wise women and wise man years, and becoming leaders. But
Yeah.
many of them are awakening only now. So it would be good for them to understand that way back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of work done. I know Cryon wrote about them, Steve Rodler wrote about them, who else? There were a lot of people, even, I'm trying to think, there were a couple of women who also wrote about these children. It was quite a intense field of study, but people were interested
Mhm.
in the way that these children were and what they brought into for us to help us with our process. And I really do feel that we wouldn't have been able to take that leap into evolution that we took at the beginning of the 21st century if it hadn't been for these waves of souls, the indigos, and then the crystals who came in to assist us with that.
Absolutely. And so do you have a philosophy or an understanding of where each of these groups of souls came from previously?
I don't think they came from one place. What I feel is that humanity is kind of descended from what I call the angelic families and the galactic families. And they came into the galaxy through the Lyre and the Stargate, many of them from Andromeda. So um, the angelic families are older. You know, I work with Archangel Michael, and he is kind of like the main honcho of the angelic families, especially as it relates to the earth. He's kind of the guardian of the earth, and he works with the indigo children. I remember when I was doing readings for a lot of indigo children, he would often come through and say how happy he was to see the person because he knew them and had worked with them, and that they had a mission together. So many of the indigos were related to the angelic families and the work of Archangel Michael. But then the galactic families are the beings like the Pleiadians, the Sirians, the Octurians, Antares, whatever, you know, people, beings who might not necessarily be physical, but who had their home and their experience in the galaxy. So they also heard what they call as the call to come to Earth to assist in the ascension process. So many angelic families came, many galactic families came and took on human form. So, and many of these came as indigos and crystals because they had this higher consciousness already and were willing to go into human form in order to express it. One of the sad things about working with so many indigos was a lot of them didn't do well on Earth. They had very difficult lives. There were some suicides, there were drug addicts, drug deaths. Pretty much what you see still today is that these young people battle with being in physical incarnation, with having such a high consciousness. So in one way, being angelic family or galactic family is a blessing, but in another way, it makes life very difficult because it's very difficult to deal with such low frequency environment as we have. But they certainly have offered themselves and they've come to serve us and to work with us.
Yeah, the density here can be really difficult for higher vibrational beings, and it does give us another perspective on, you know, there is so much drug use and abuse and suicidal behavior in the world, and And it could be in part, or it is probably in part due to having so many high vibrational beings that just can't handle this intense density and the experience of being human in, you know, the chaos, the negativity, the fear, where they're coming from these realms of light and, you know, so much more flow and ease, and they don't have those
Yeah,
dense experiences.
but they can become quite destructive too. I remember once dealing with, I've had several occasions dealing with young indigos in their late 20s who were living at home off their parents, and I said to them, well, don't you think it would be time for you to move out now, you know, and find your own life? No, they've got plenty of money. Why should I work? And what is there to that, you know? Because to them, earth reality didn't make sense. To
Mhm.
them, you know, if their parents were filthy rich, why would they have to work? Why would they have to leave home? You know, there's plenty of money. They don't need to. And, you know, if you look at the logic of that, and that's what they were here for, to say that there's no logic in your system. It doesn't make sense to us. And to get their parents to start, you know, the parents would come in tearing their hair out saying, what did I do wrong? You know, but it wasn't anything that they did wrong. It was the system itself,
Mhm.
and the economic system and the way it worked. And, you know, why should not a master soul take advantage of it? Why should they have to go out and work when they can just take advantage of the fact, you know, that the system has provided them with an easy life? So it was difficult for, and, you know, many of them, I remember working with a young girl who was a drug addict and had terrible problems. And then I met her again about 10 years later, and she had turned her life around completely.
Mm.
And she said, she's kind of apologized to me and said she was sorry for what she had been. But it was just a phase she was going through. And I recognize that, you know, a lot of them turned their lives around and realized that they were here for a purpose. And that wasn't just to take drugs and free ride. It was actually to serve a higher purpose on the earth. And they became very, wouldn't call them productive, what do you call them, meaningful citizens in terms of the ascension process and helping others.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, that's a category that I fit into myself. I was a child of the 70s, very rebellious. I always had a mission, but I didn't always have an expression for my mission, which showed up as rebellion in my youth. I fell into the drugs and alcohol circuit for many years, and that in my very early 20s and late teens, and then I traveled with a shaman and got my life straightened out and figured out my true mission and purpose. And so I'm grateful that I had that guidance, because if I hadn't, you know, it would have been much more difficult.
Yeah, so you were what I would call a first wave indigo, and you kind of walked the path and did everything you were supposed to. You were supposed to cause chaos, and you were supposed to make a mess, um, so that you could then discover a better way and help other people as well. And of course, the second wave of indigos went straight into the heart. So the moment they arrived, the first wave upgraded to the heart and understood the importance of the heart center. And then the crystals actually took that into being warriors of the heart, which was, I'm here to support the heart energy and nothing else. Uh, which is you know, these children from the 1990s who were just so loving, and, you know, almost like 60s hippies come back again. They just weren't interested in anything except peace and harmony and saving the earth. And you still have kids like that, because more and more of them are being born into, and as I said before, what we have now is the diamond energy, where they are so clear and so transparent. They know exactly what they're here for, and they don't care what anyone says. They're going to stand up for what they believe.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And so we've talked about me. Tell us about you. Where do you fall into all of this?
I did all of them, I think. I was born in the mid-50s, so I was that generation, what they call the spiritual leaders, you know, kind of the ones who were going first. And then I was born indigo crystal. There were people who were born before the 70s. They were odd, they call them indigo way showers. And they were the ones who kind of powered the spiritual awakening, especially around about the late 1990s and the year 2000. I remember, I think it was 2000, I don't think when it was. by 2006 or 7. I think it was 2007 because it would have been just before the 2008 wave. People just came dropping into my therapy room because I was working as a healer then, and they all wanted to be opened up. And I said to Archangel Michael, what is this? Because I'm living in Africa in a quiet suburb, and there's just hundreds of people arriving from all over. And he just said they are all wanting to join the next wave of awakening. Mm-hmm. So they don't know it in their brain, you know, they don't know that this is what they're there for, but they just have a feeling that they wanted to see me. And so for a while it was just like a sausage factory, you know, Ascension sausage factory, and all these people coming through. And then I moved my own work. I started doing global. I traveled a lot. So for 10 years I just traveled all over the place. And that was when, in this process of becoming, my own work went up to the next level. And I became a kind of, what would you call it, global traveler. So, and then at one stage, about 4 years ago, I said, no, it's enough now. I want to stay home. And that was another, because then I started working on Vimeo, you know, and working with the video medium, Zoom, and found another audience. And I think at the moment, this is where it's at. People are working with videos and with Zoom in order to get to a wider audience than they would if they were physically going by airplane or wherever. And of course, with the COVID now, it's impossible to have that kind of lifestyle anyway. But I think that what you're doing with the summits and working with videos is very powerful, and it's really getting the message across to so many people at this time. So it's a blessing, this technology that we can use.
Yeah, it really is. I found that I love the collaboration of doing summits and bringing all of these wonderful thought leaders like yourself to, you know, to a wider audience, and to, I'm sure, while many of the people are aware of you that are watching, many are not. And so we all kind of get to share each other's experience in a big way. And I absolutely love the collaboration and connection that's available by doing this type of work. So I feel very blessed and upgraded by being someone that gets to do this. It's wonderful. And with that, I thank you for being willing to share with us and give us this time and sharing your wisdom. And we are at the end of our hour now. So thank you so much, Celia. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. It's been great to be with you.
Yeah, wonderful. And I want to say to all of the viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to visit our Facebook page, which will also be linked here, and just let us know what you thought about the conversation. Did you learn something? Just give us your thoughts and ideas, and I'll be sure to tune in and reply to your comments there. And one of the biggest reasons that I do this work is because I want everyone to know that you don't have to do your ascension work alone. We are one big community of light, and we are all ascending together. And that just brings my heart so much joy that we get to do this together. So thank you all. I will end there, and namaste.